Hello and welcome to the Tour Report from Secret Golf. It's the final event of the 2023 season. This is the big one. It's crunch time, of course, guys, trying to keep their PGA Tour cards for next year. And then we have places up for grabs in the first two signature events of 2024 as well. Elk, before we talk about the RSM Classic, we have to go back to last week. It was the Butterfield Bermuda Championship, and Camilo Villegas, it's hard to put into words what the victory was, and we'll get into that. But you'd picked him. He was 150-1 at the start of the week, and he was one of your picks. So well done. And that's the last 3 years in a row that we have successfully given you the winner for Bermuda. I think that means that we have to take some sort of field trip. I don't know. Maybe we should be rewarded with a vacation to paradise.
I think you're right. That's good thinking. We saw so much emotion, Diane. It's very hard to handicap players this time of the season when all the good players aren't playing and there's a lot of emotion, as you talked about, guys trying to keep their cards. We saw Van Royen down in Mexico in Cabo sort of generating all that energy towards his sick friend, and that was able to propel him to a victory. No way for anyone to measure that amount or to be able to calculate that in. But we saw it again last week with Villegas. He, has had some personal tragedy. He's coming back. And then once he got on that emotional ride, which he finished second in Cabo, for me, it was just a natural, similar course, similar grass, not a strong field. And I think he has a tattoo on one wrist that says attitude. The other one is energy. He talks a lot about positive energy. How much energy can he get flowing into his body? Very sort of a deep thinker.
Yeah.
Looking for energy to propel himself, and of course he won it. And so lucky for me, or lucky for us, winning our third one in a row at the Butterfield. But it's an emotional time of year, Diane, and we're seeing people are propelling themselves out of nowhere with these sort of emotions.
Yeah, and we talk about the intangibles, and it's obviously everything that he's gone through in his life and losing his daughter, and he's very spiritual and said that his daughter was up there watching down on him, and it's been well documented the personal struggles that his family has gone through, but then also they have their foundation and all the work that they've done in honor of their daughter's memory, and it's really amazing. It's a very, very special win for him. And his work life definitely comes second to his family life. However, what a time for it to happen before Mexico. Well, actually, for the Mexico tournament where he finished runner-up, he was 500-1. He was 223rd in the FedExCup standings. So runner-up finish, then a win. He's now 75th in the standings. He's got his job locked up for a couple of years. He's going to be playing the Masters, everything that comes with being a winner on the PGA Tour again for the first time in 9-10 years. And he's in contention to get a place in those first two signature events of next year. So it's like 2 life-changing weeks in terms of his job.
Gives a lot of people a lot of hope, Diane, when these other tour players that are fighting for the card. We have a few that we're going to talk about this week that are, this is the week. At the end of it, this is an emotional week for a lot of guys. I mean, your brother, for example, Russell Knox, sitting at 146, is his chances of getting in the 125 very slim now. He's boxed into a window where he'll probably have to have a top 3 or top 5 to get himself into the top 125. But now he has to think about something else. Has to think about keeping himself into 150. 150 will guarantee him probably a dozen events next year. Probably not the ones he wants to, but now he's got to hang on to that. So there's a lot of little emotional swings in this tournament, Diane. I've got my long horse pick. My dark horse pick this week is not on a bigger role as Villegas, but similar. We'll talk about that soon. But we also have the re-emergence of about 15 or 13 of the top 50 players this year on tour coming back to play this week. The likes of Brian Harman, the Open champion who lives down there. So the volatility will be a little bit different this week. In other words, when you have a sort of an influx of another 10 or 15 really top players into the field, it's harder for these guys that are down below to jump in there, because this will be another episode that we'll film soon enough. But we know from studying this that 80% of all the money won on the PGA Tour is won by the guys in the top 50. So they're going to gobble up a lot of attention this week, these top 50 guys. They may not win one, but it's harder for the guys down below to leapfrog when you have a bunch of good players playing, really good players.
I want to go back to something in a minute, but just touching on that, and you've been there, and maybe this is like a bit of an asshole thing for me to say, but do you think the guys that are around the bubble, battling for their cards, knowing that every point, every position is going to make a big difference to them, do you think they look at these guys that are safely in the top 50 of the FedExCup standings and be like, why are you here? Like, help us out a little bit.
No, they're not thinking that. They believe, as well they should be, they believe that they can beat everyone out there when they play, and it would be more of a feather in their cap to win on a stronger field. They just got to play good golf. I mean, there's no room really in your mind, Diane, to be thinking, well, I wish this guy wasn't there or this guy wasn't here. We used to say that if Tiger Woods didn't play, instead of playing for $5 million, we were playing for $6 million, because he allocated himself for $1 million every week. Basically, that was his average when he played. So some of us liked it when he wasn't playing.
So I want to go back to something else, explaining that 126 to 150, how the guys get conditional status. And as you said, they'll probably get into about a dozen events. It's going to look a little bit different though. And like for 2024, obviously we have these signature events where the top guys are going to be appearing. And that was the tour's objective, was to have these kind of like standout events where there's going to be more money on the table, higher caliber of field. So the guys that finish like 126 to 150 and have conditional status, and all the others that choose to go and play in these maybe like 12, whatever kind of lesser events, so to speak, it's a good thing for them, because going by strength of field, the fields aren't going to be as strong as the signature events, and it gives them a chance to potentially regain full status again.
Well, it does. You just said it, like Camilo just did it in the last 2 weeks, but the odds are skewed way against you in your favor, Diane, when you're playing only 12 events for half them. It's tougher to get up into the top 125 when you've got all these 50 top players. You got to consider that the guys that are in those big events next year, they've already got their top 125 card locked up. So there's only 75 spots left, and there's about 200 of you to get the other 75. So how do I get in those? I mean, that's the reality of this tour. And 125 is the number, Diane. If you can be in the top 125, you are exempt for everything next year, pretty much.
And the other thing is, for the guys that finish 126 to 200, they have the option to go play the DP World Tour next year. So that's something else. And obviously, like, I'm thinking about this because my brother is in this position, and like maybe that's really appealing for some guys who have solely played in America for the last couple of years, that they can play a little bit of worldwide golf, play DP World Tour, maybe regain some world ranking points and, whatever by playing over there. So there's options. And we have Q School making a return mid-December right here in Jacksonville. So there's options. This week is a big, big week, but there are other options that come afterwards.
Yeah, it depends who you are and what your situation is. Your brother is Scottish by descent. He might enjoy playing some European events. There might be some young guys that are in that category you spoke of that would like to go play and see part of the world. I know for me, when I was younger, I would have gone anywhere to play. I went to Monte Carlo, Ireland, Germany when I was first starting out on tour. It was great. Played on the European tour for a year, loved every second of it.
Yeah.
Other people that have families do not want to go. They don't want to leave and go that far away and play their golf. So they'll grind it out here. So it's a case-by-case basis.
Okay. All right. Well, this week we are talking about the RSM Classic. As we said, it's the final one, so it's the big one. There's going to be a lot on the line. This tournament is always a good one. I'm going to go up for the 4 days, which I'm excited about. It's kind of unpredictable because of the weather. The weather is definitely the biggest defense out there. We've got two courses at Sea Island. It's the Plantation course and the Seaside course. So the guys all flip-flop between the Plantation and the Seaside Thursday, Friday, and then it's the Seaside for the weekend. The Plantation course is definitely the easier of the two, so guys are going to have to take advantage of that. But yeah, as I said, I've been up there. I didn't go last year because I just had my son, but my husband was there, and I was up the year before. The weather is, I mean, it was freezing. And for a Scot living in Florida, for me to say that traveling an hour and a half from home, it was absolutely Baltic. Like, that's the coldest I've maybe been since I moved to the States. Because you're obviously right on the water. The temperature just drops in those perishing winds. And the forecast is not looking all that great for this week either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of it's going to matter to these guys that are trying to push for their cards. I mean, we are seeing the likes of Brian Harman, who lives down there, is playing this week. That'll be good for him. This will be a sort of a feather in his cap for the season. We do know one thing about this course, though, Diane. If you look at the last three champions, Adam Svensson, Taylor Gooch, you remember that name? He won here a couple of years ago, won 3 times this year on the Live, and Robert Streb. Mm-hmm. Those 3 champions, Diane, the last 3 years have all done one thing in common, or 2 things in common. All 3 of them finished in the top 10 in greens in regulation and the top 10 in putting for the week. Yeah. So what does that tell you? And you said weather was bad last year. So you've got to hit the ball well. You've got to get on the greens in regulation. There's a lot of sort of palmetto bushes that run away down into sort of never land around this place. So a lot of guys know this course pretty well. But end of the day, Diane, you're going to have to putt well and hit all the greens to win this tournament.
Yeah, Adam Svensson won last year. Taylor Gooch made a great comment when he won. He said that, he played college golf in Oklahoma, very windy. And he said that really helped him do well in Sea Island because he knew to play his shots, low, below the wind, effectively. And that, obviously helped him. Cam Smith has done well. He did well that year, finished within the top 3. So wind players, it's going to be a big thing this week. And then you touched on it with Brian Harman, the local support, because there's so many golfers that live in Sea Island. It's a real hub for PGA Tour players. And it's going to be a huge week for Harman. Obviously he's been well rested, played the Ryder Cup, won the Open, like we need to say, and has been at home. So this is going to be a nice week for him with a lot of local support. JT Poston, who's expecting his first baby, which is very exciting for him. Harris English, Keith Mitchell, Patton Kazire, who we obviously know well. We've been bigging him the last few weeks. He's now at 130 in the standings. Fell last week. So huge week for Patton, hopefully with local support.
Played pretty well in fell spots. So
yeah,
as I talked about, the volatility, it's tough out there right now, as you said.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of those top 50 players, Diane, on our sheet. Hardly any of them have played in the last 6 weeks. So I don't have anyone. I don't think I have a top 50 player picked this. I have one at the top that's been playing a little golf, but none that haven't been playing for 6 weeks. They've been off. So this is sort of, as you said, this is a real hub for players. I don't know a place in the U.S., Diane, that has more players in the Sea Island area.
Yeah,
there must be a dozen guys that come from this area.
Yeah, Davis Love III, he was part of the redesign of the course up there. Zach Johnson lives up there too. A lot of golfers live here in Ponte Vedra, in Jacksonville, but I guess Sea Island is such a small little town and they're all concentrated there. The benefit they have, and Harman is a great example because he finished runner-up last year. They've all played the course so many times. I mean, this is where they practice. They're out there all the time. So that's going to be a real benefit to him. I found Brian Harman actually at 20-1. Ludwig Aberg is the Vegas favorite this week. But Harman at 20-1, I thought those were great odds. I'm not picking him as my outright favorite, but that might be worth a little bit.
I got to wait and see what his swinging looks like after 6 weeks off.
Right, well, maybe we should just get into our picks then. We're on a roll with you picking Villegas last week at 150-1. So we're going to give our outright favourites, ones to watch, and then dark horses. Boy, do I have a dark horse this week. And again, because there's just so much on the line and so many guys are motivated for different reasons and different goals this week, I've got a few other prop bets that we'll throw in at the end as well. But outright favourite, do you want to kick off with yours?
Okay, I will. when I talked to you earlier about the two categories that you have to do well in over the last 3 years of greens in regulation and putting. So I'm taking the guy at the top of the board this week, Diane, who's the best in this field at those two categories. And he's had an unreal year. Hardly anyone knows Eric Cole, but, well, they do know him. They hear his name and all that, but he's in the top 50, almost won at Palm Beach down at the Honda this year, finished second. But Diane, he's the best. He's the best at those two stats. He's played good all year. He's in the top 50. He's in those Vegas events. I mean, what is left for Eric Cole? I think the pressure, he's had a bit of pressure on him. People have been picking him when we're going into these smaller events as being a hot player. But he's, he plays everywhere. He's all over the place, meaning that he plays a lot of golf. And he's been playing great over the last 7 weeks, second, third, fourth. I mean, the guy's right there every week. So I'm picking Eric Cole just because those two categories just are undeniably in his favor this week.
Yeah, and you've also been big on Eric Cole for a while now. So that he's been close and he's handled himself really well when he's been in contention. Obviously, get to cross the finish line, but definitely a good week for him. And he's going to be under less pressure than these guys that are effectively battling for their jobs. So
just for the record, I'm on everybody that's in the top 5 in putting and greens and reg. Just saying. On the whole tour.
He's 33-1. Those are good odds for somebody who's within the top 50 and teeing it up this week. So I like it. My guy is also, well, I found him at 33-1. Let me check. There's a range, but I found him at 33-1. He's around about 28 to 33. But this guy is hot right now. He's been playing well the last couple of weeks. I looked at him last week for Bermuda, and he was leading after 54 holes and ended up finishing runner-up. But maybe he'll continue that Villegas trend and do runner-up and then winner the next week. Alex Noren is going to be my pick. I looked at him last week because he's Swedish. He's played all over the world for a long, long time. He's had a great career, but still searching for that win on the PGA Tour. Great wind player, which proved to be a good thing last week in Bermuda, although it wasn't as windy as it could have been. But this week, again, wind we know is going to be a factor. But he's had 2 top 3s in his last 3 starts. So when you're looking at hot players right now, Noren is one of them. He's played well here in the past. He's had a 10th place finish in 2020 and 18th in 2021. And when you look at his putting, that's definitely his strength. And has been for a really, really long time. He's 23rd for the whole PGA Tour this season. He is 11th when you look at the field this week in putting and 7th for greens and reg. So there you go. Those are ticking your 2 boxes. His number is safe. He's 64th in the FedExCup standings, so in a good position for the 2 signature events to start 2024. But kind of like Eric Cole, under a little bit less pressure than the majority of the field, yet still looking for his first win on tour. So I'm going to take Alex Noren. As I said, he's anywhere between 28-1 and 33-1. But I like him to continue the trend of runner-up winner on the PGA Tour right now.
Yeah, and I think the tour, the TV this week will be focusing a little bit more on almost like a tour school. They're focusing on the bubble boys, who is 125th, how, where are they? What are they doing? So there's some different interest levels this week. So it takes a bit of pressure off some of these guys Noren, like Cole, just go out and play, do what they've been doing all season.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that. We should talk about the guys around the bubble. Andrew Nowak is 124th. Carl Yuan, 125th. Eric Norlander is 126th. And Maverick McNeely, 127th. Although McNeely did have, he probably
had some kind of a medical. Yeah.
Yes. Well, he's going to have a medical anyway. But we'll move on to our ones to watch. So guys with slightly higher odds. And I'll kick off with mine. My guy's actually, I found him at 60-1. He had a great week last week and actually made the biggest jump up the standings from 148th to 120th after he finished 3rd in Bermuda. So okay, he's not 100% safe yet within the 125, but he's a lot safer than he was when he was at 148. But form, we've seen it time and time again. We've talked about it so many times already on the show that form during these fall events is huge. And he played the DP World Tour, the Spanish Masters, and finished runner-up there. So he's obviously, got good form and taken it to Bermuda, where he's finished third. So he's in a really strong position right now.
Almost safe. Yeah, it makes a cut in the middle of the pack. It'll get him through to the 125 probably.
Yeah. So I am like Matti Schmid. Did I even say his name at the top there? But probably murdering the pronunciation as well. But
I think he's got an Aussie caddy. He's got an Aussie cat, Sponge. I think Sponge is caddy for him. I saw him on TV last week. Don't know Sponge's real name, but he has spongy looking hair, so they called him Sponge. Don't know.
I love it. I'm looking at his stats: 44th in putting for the field this week, 25th off the tee. And that, we said that greens and reg and putting are going to be the two stats we look at, but that off the tee stat is always important at Sea Island. So I like him this week. Again, anywhere between 50 to 1 to 60 to 1 for Matti Schmid.
Yep, I like that. I'm taking a player that lives in this area, St. Simon. Grew up in North Carolina. He's played 6 weeks in a row. 6 weeks ago, he finished second at the Sanderson and has pretty much played steady golf all the way. One missed cut, but in the money for the last 4 weeks in a row. I'm talking about Ben Griffin, who's 54th in this fall category of getting into these events. So into this the two big ones. So at the end of this week, Ben Griffin's going home, which is close by. He's going to have a great Christmas. He's had a solid season of golf. He has two of the stats that I like, putting, as you know, and greens and reg. He knows his course very well. Playing some good golf. I talked already about not picking players that haven't played in the last 6 weeks, like Brian Harman and Harris English. I'm going with guys that have been out there, Diane, that have traveled everywhere, and they're just finishing off. Ben Griffin at 70 to 1. Are you kidding? He's 54th on the FedEx.
Yeah, that's amazing. I looked at him as well, and he came so close at the Sanderson Farms. He showed so much emotion after that. And this part of the season does, it's all on the line. This is the week. So good one. I like Ben Griffin. What was his number again in the FedEx?
54th in the fall, 63rd overall.
Okay.
So he's in good shape for next season either way. But trying to evaluate what are they doing, what are they pushing for. He's going for those two big events. So if I'm him, I'm shooting at every flag this week to see if I can get a top 5 and jump 4 players and make myself a bunch of money just by playing good this week.
And the bonus of the signature events is obviously money. Like there's going to be a lot of money up for grabs if you can make it into the signature events. So, that's
if you make a signature event, I think it's $150,000 for last prize. So if you make 2 of them, that's $300,000 if you finish last. So I don't know about you, Diane, but I can do something with 300.
Yes, I think that's fair to say. Okay, then. So I'm taking Matti Schmid and you've got Ben Griffin. Okay, dark horse picks. I'm going to let you go first because my guy is anywhere between 350 to 1 to 400 to 1. But you need to hear me out because I know the odds are like astronomical. But I've got some prop bet odds for you as well. And I have a story behind it all.
I have a story. Probably had something to do with a baby or got married, but I'll go first. I double, triple dog dare you not to place a bet on this man this week, Diane. I'm talking about my friend and yours, Ryan Palmer from Dallas. He is coming almost in the same vein as Villegas, not quite as much, but he's had 2 top 10 finishes, Diane, the last 2 weeks, tie for 8th and a tie for 5th, to be at 129th on the money list or the FedEx list. Will he do it again? I just texted him with him and told him how good he was doing after Bermuda, and he is fired up for this week. He wants to be exempt. This is probably about his 15th, 17th year on tour. anybody not going to be on this guy for 110 to 1 to propel himself into the top 125 next year? Certainly not me. I'm doing it. Ryan Palmer, once he gets going, I mean, this is a no-brainer for me.
How good is that? That is what a huge 2 weeks when it matters. There's been so many guys in that position. You know, Camilo Villegas, we've obviously mentioned, no one more so than him, but Ryan Palmer, who was probably thinking, like, let's just finish within the 150, but then obviously put his foot to the floor and look where he's got himself. He's in prime position to make it into the 125 now. So another good week. Great wind player, the Texans.
A lot of experience. Been out there a long time. Not going to get
played
flustered.
This course a lot.
He's been in the heat the last 2 weeks. He's hit a ton of good shots. Done everything he's needed to do. Putt well under pressure the last 2 weeks. He's ready. I mean, if on a regular event, we'd be putting him in our top 5 anyway. Just for the form that he has.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. I love that pick. 110 to 1, exceptional odds. My guy, as I said, I found him at 400 to 1. But you have to hear me out with this. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and I should have done
This is really rare for you because you usually study this.
Yeah. I might have to go and watch it on YouTube so that I can make sure. Fred Biondi? Have you heard of this guy? Okay. Fred Biondi. And I am going to look it up because I'm a stickler for the details and I would hate to let him down. But he's Brazilian. He's one of the hot new names to come out from the college circuit. So if you were following the college, tournaments last year, Ludwig Aberg was obviously like the guy that graduated from the PGA Tour University to play. But Fred was part of the Florida Gators golf team. They won the NCAA championship. He won the NCAA individual national championship for 2023. Okay, so there you go. Huge thing. And he finished 13th last week in Bermuda in his 3rd PGA Tour event. He missed the cut in the other 2. But a 13th place finish in your 3rd PGA Tour event when you're that young and fresh out of college was excellent. So already I'm like paying attention. But then I started to dig a little bit deeper. And earlier this year, the SEC championship, the Florida Gators won it. Where was it held?
Sea Island, I'm sure.
Sea Island on the seaside course. And they won it here. Now, Fred actually was all tied in his match, all square, took half a point, but he had to make a really clutch putt to tie it up. So his putt was very, very important. And the team went on to win and they had their celebrations, obviously, at Sea Island. So for this Florida Gator, he's heading back to a place where he has great memories with his team and coming off a 13th place finish in Bermuda last week. So, I mean, it's just a great story, isn't it? 400 to 1. But then I had a little look. If you want to get him for a top 20, 10 to 1. So I thought that was pretty good as well and worth putting a few bucks on. So Fred Biondi, and I have, when you're talking,
I don't know any other way you could say it. I think
Biondi. I'm like, it has to be. I was thinking of Bondi. Yeah, Biondi.
Yeah, Fred Biondi.
So there you go. Good name to pay attention to this week with a good backstory.
That's a good pick. Ludwig Aberg is playing this week. We have not mentioned him, but it's going to be tougher for him this week because there's 2 courses he has to get used to. He hasn't seen before. So he jumped off my board. You know how strong I am there. So it's going to be a very interesting week. A lot of things to unfold. Let's put all of our good energy, as Camilo Villegas says, towards your brother. We want good attitude on one wrist and we got good energy. So here's all the energy to the Knox family this week.
I know. I feel like, not that my presence makes any difference, and he probably would rather that I wasn't there, but I'm like, no. And we're planning to take our son, who just turned 1, but the forecast is for a lot of rain on Thursday and Friday. So we're trying to figure out which of the family members is going to stay back with the baby Thursday and Friday so we can go up there and give our support. So got to be done. It's an important time. I've got a few other names that I want to mention quickly. Vincent Whaley is another name that if you've been following leaderboards the last couple of weeks, he's 100-1 this week. 3 top 13 finishes in his last 6 starts. Finished 8th last week in Bermuda. But he's a great putter. And we don't have like really, really detailed stats for him because he's been playing Corn Ferry Tour and a little bit of PGA Tour. But he is, as I said, last week finished 8th. He was ranked 8th in putting last week. He's 4-1 for a top 20 and he's at 160th in the standings. So obviously he's trying to get into that 150 for conditional status. And then someone else that we obviously, if you follow golf, everyone knows him, Webb Simpson. He's at 149th in the standings and he's heading back to a place where he plays amazing. Like Webb Simpson, back in the day, this was his wheelhouse. 5 top 8 finishes at the RSM Classic. And for a top 10 this week, he's plus 750. So I thought that was cool. There's Webb Simpson, he's always going to play well at the Wyndham and he's going to play well here. So again, at 149, he's under a little bit of pressure to get into the 150 to keep that spot.
A lot of pressure this week. Let's see what happens. Either way, this is it for the season, Diane. We'll shut it down. We'll have a couple of wrap-up shows and talk about our amazingly good fortune of picking. I think we're at 11 winners. Maybe this week we'll get our 12th, and we'll sort of recap how we did that and talk about how this season unfolded.
Yeah, exactly. Right, well, thank you as always for watching and for supporting the Tour Report. And this is the last official PGA Tour event of 2023, but we still have some other stuff going on. And we'll come back on and do a couple of wrap shows for the year. Looking ahead to 2024 on the PGA Tour.